Hi guys, and welcome to week 3. This week we'll be starting with sources of drug information. The top 3 you see listed here aren't used a ton, but we're going to go through them. Sources of drug information are places that pharmacists and doctors and medical assistants and nurses can look to get information about that drug. Some of those sources might contain dosing or side effect information. Some of them might contain information on how to compound that drug if it's a IV product. So the physician's desk reference is the first, and really we should probably change this to the physician's digital reference because at this point most of us are using online sources as they save paper and time. So the physician's desk reference is published annually, and you have supplements twice a year. It is sent free to doctors' offices and sold throughout bookstores. It is probably, honestly, at this point in life, a big waste of paper because really this stuff should be online. It has a ton of pages and is usually a very thick volume. And contains information about more than 2,500 prescription drugs. As you can see on page 1132, it has 6 sections that talk about the manufacturer's index, which include the pharmaceutical company's name, address, telephone number, and available products. It also has the brand and generic name index, the product category index, the identification guide with full color photos, product information, and then diagnostic product information. So the PDR is available online, I do believe now. All of these, plus the PDR internet site, PDR electronic library that come with the PDR are important sources for drug information. You probably may or may not see one in your lifetime. So the USP National Formulary is an official source of drug standards in the United States published once every 5 years. It is the official public standards setting authority for all prescription medications, OTC drugs, dietary supplements, and other healthcare products. By law, every product sold under a name listed in the USPNF must meet USP's strict standards. The American Hospital Formulary Service simply lists drugs by their brand and generic names and separates them based on their actions, also available online. Something that you may access quite often is actually Epocrates or Epocrates.com. You can actually upload it onto your smartphone, and it contains more than 3,300 branded generic drugs, alternative medicines, an interaction checker, an IV compatibility checker, ICD-10 codes, and CPT codes, as well as a pill identifier. This is all super helpful. My particular institution uses Lexicomp. The School of Pharmacy I went to used Micromedics. Those are 2 other sources of drug information that contain something similar to Epocrates. Second to last but not least, package inserts can be super helpful. These are still usually distributed in paper form in each box that the drug comes in, although many of them are moving to online forms. The package insert for each drug describes the drug, its purpose and effects, indications, contraindications, warnings, precautions, adverse reactions, and much more. It is helpful in determining if a certain side effect might be associated with that drug or how to give the drug as well. Drug labels are important to be understood as they contain a lot about information about the drug in terms of the drug name, possibly brand or generic or both, its form, injection, tablet, topical, dosage strength, the total amount that is in the container, the route of administration, warnings, storage requirements, and manufacturing information. By law, the generic name as listed in the USPNF must appear on the drug's label. It may also include the trade or brand name if that is what the drug is being sold under. So if we look on page 1134, you'll see 3 different examples of drug labels. You'll notice they have barcodes, strengths, how they are given, how they're stored, all on that tiny little label. Lots of good information on these. So controlled substances. These are important, and we're going to learn a lot more about them when you do your drug information project, which is coming up shortly. A controlled substance is a drug or drug product categorized as potentially dangerous and addictive. The greater the potential for abuse, the more severe the limitations on prescribing are. Federal law strictly regulates the use of these controlled substances, and then states, municipalities, and institutions must adhere to those laws, but may also impose stricter laws than federal laws. So there was a comprehensive Drug Abuse Prevention and Control Act called the Controlled Substance Act of 1970, and it was created to strengthen drug enforcement authority. It designated 5 schedules according to the degree of potential for abuse or a substance to be abused for a non-therapeutic effect. Schedule 1 drugs do not have a medical use and cannot be prescribed in the United States, and you would see those listed as a big capital C with the Roman numeral 1. They usually include things like illicit substances, marijuana, even though it's not illicit anymore, still listed as a Schedule 1. And again, they have no medical use within the United States at this time. Schedule 2 drugs, or C2, such as you see on the screen, include opioids, which are natural or synthetic drugs that produce opium-like effects. Examples of Schedule 2 drugs include codeine, morphine, and meperidine. Government agencies may use the term narcotics for those Schedule 2 drugs. Schedule 3 through 5 have reduced potential for abuse. They are progressively less addictive as you move from 3 to 4 to 5, and they may have easier or less strong prescription requirements. Sometimes the DEA reclassifies drugs, although this is a large political process that takes a lot of time and effort. Schedule 3s may eventually be found less addictive and move to Schedule 4. And the 5 schedules, their prescriptions and legal requirements and examples of substances in each are outlined in Table 51.4. This will be important in your drug information product because you'll want to identify if your medication that you're putting information in to your Excel spreadsheet is a controlled substance, because that is one of the major columns. This can be found on Epocrates and I believe drugs.com. If you guys have any questions, I'm going to be making a video detailing where to find that information. So, controlled substance labeling is also in Figure 51.8, and again, it's just the Roman numeral 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Most likely you'll only see 2 through 5, and the capital letter C, meaning that medication is a controlled substance. Authorized prescribers who administer, dispense, or prescribe any controlled substance must register with the DEA and have a current state license to practice medicine, and if required, a state-controlled substance license. They must comply with all aspects of the Controlled Substance Act. This includes registration, renewal, and ordering of controlled substances. For example, DEA Form 224 is used to register a provider, 222 is used to order, and Form 41 is used to destroy controlled substances. You cannot destroy controlled substances without filling out that form and getting permission from the DEA. Drugs that are controlled must be stored in a locked cabinet or safe or in a Pyxis that can't be accessed unless you are specifically accessing that drug under a patient's name. If required by state law, they may also even require double locks. The licensed practitioner should keep the keys at all times, except when asking you to add or take from the stock, if this is a task that you are allowed to do. If controlled drugs are stolen from the practitioner's office or even from a pharmacy, they must call their local drug enforcement administration and report that. Last but not least, record keeping. Record keeping is important, especially with controlled substances. Dispensing records for Schedule 2 drugs must be kept separate from a patient's regular medical record. Each time a drug is administered or dispensed, the licensed practitioner must note the date, the patient's name, address, drug, and quantity dispensed. The dispensing record for drug schedules 3 through 5 must include the same information. The record for these drugs may be kept in the actual patient's record, unlike the C2 dispensing. All records for dispensing must be kept for 2 years. Inventory is also important. You must keep track of controlled substance inventories. Overall, pharmacies do overall inventories to make sure they're not losing product or that they're not having products sit on the shelf for an extremely long period of time, but controlled substance inventories are done more often, and sometimes even with every dispense, to keep track of such things such as Schedule 2s. So, to take an inventory, you have to count the amount of each drug on hand. We would compare this with the amount of the drug ordered and the amount dispensed to patients, and the two should add up to the total amount on hand. So if you've ordered 500 tablets and dispensed 300, you should have 200 tablets sitting on the shelf. The controlled drug inventory must be reported every 2 years, and you should include copies of invoices from drug suppliers as well as dispense records. So last but not least, disposing of drugs. We said we needed a DEA Form 41. Again, we cannot flush, throw away, or destroy any medications that are controlled substances. 1, this pollutes the environment, and 2, it's not allowed by the DEA. So you submit Form 41 to the DEA. They approve that you can destroy the medications or ship them to the DEA, and the DEA will destroy them for you. Usually, though, it's the other way around. If a practitioner terminates their medical practice, they must return their DEA registration certificate, any unused copies of DEA Form 222, which is the ordering copy, as well as probably destroy any medications with DEA Form 41 before closing. We would also write void across the unused 222 forms in order so that they can't be used to order prescription controlled substances by the general public. So I believe we're stopping there. I always miss moving forward on the slide, and I'm so sorry about that. But please let me know if you guys have any questions. This is all, we'll be covering that next week. This is all in the book, very well laid out in the charts. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. This week you have a forum. Don't forget to meet the minimum word requirements listed in the forum directions. You also have an assignment on Connect. And next week we will be finishing up Chapter 51 and moving on to Chapter 52, but not before we take our Chapter 51 test. There will be a Smart Book assignment in week 4, and we'll talk more about that next week. Have a great week, guys.